the six color flag is just satanic. I feel like that's just a form of
Six,
it's like
six,
ignorance.
six. Hi everyone, it's me, Buena. I'm 23.
Hi, I'm Bruce, 24 years old this year.
Hi, I'm Shara. I'm 22 this year.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I'm 17 this year.
Hi everyone, I'm Filman. I'm 22 this year.
Cancel culture is too extreme.
I kind of disagree that cancel culture is too extreme because I think it's an important social mechanism to kind of keep powerful influencers and influential figures and people in power in check. And I think that is a way for us to hold them accountable for the things that they say.
To me, I feel like cancel culture has been so normalized. It's no longer between people and with people of power. It could be between anybody. Anybody can get cancelled on social media nowadays. So I feel like it can be very extreme when people start pulling out receipts from like old tweets or start pulling out personal information and then tweeting like, oh, this person lives here, this person works here, studies here, and all that. Even though there are laws that says, doxing, like releasing someone's personal information is illegal, I feel like it doesn't stop someone to continue to be so extreme just to push them down or try to bring this person down because of an opinion or what they have said.
I think originally the idea of cancel culture was based upon the check and balance, is what you say again, was for like powerful figures, influencers and stuff. But I do feel it's not extreme in the sense that these influencers have power, and with their words they actually hurt a lot of other people with the comments they make, because they are able to actually divide people at such extreme levels.
There are a lot of social media activists nowadays. So this cancel culture started because you are ought to subscribe to this idea that is usually of the majorities, or the most justified, the most reasonable. So there's this us camp, which is the right camp, and if you don't join our camp, you're asking to be cancelled. I'm active in the K-pop fandom kind of thing, like Stan Twitter. So I saw that this big account, she tweeted that she didn't like something of this band, and then all the fan accounts started to bash her because, first of all, she's a big account. She's supposed to, do good with the following she has. And secondly, this is an example of how she went against the dominant belief.
I think I have to echo with Cheryl because I believe, as a K-pop fan.
Yes, I saw it.
Because I feel like, while everyone agrees that, it's to keep, people in power, people with influence in check. But because it's been so normalized, anybody could get cancelled. Anybody with a Twitter account just mentioning an unpopular opinion can get cancelled for just saying that.
BRB, deleting all my old tweets.
Cancel culture places people into a pigeonhole of traits.
I don't feel that it is actually pigeonholing people into a limited set of traits, because a lot of these times when they do say something, be it racist, homophobic, xenophobic, anything, it comes from a space of ignorance and lack of education. So in a sense that telling them that you actually need to educate yourself, that there's not really place for sexism, homophobia, all these kind of things, because all these are all ignorance. And if you're still into that, right, you're basically following the idea that ignorance is bliss, and you're just spewing hatred in a sense.
Okay, from a psychology perspective, I think a lot of things happen when you decide that you don't agree with someone. So that is to say, if you don't identify with them or the beliefs that they espouse, you put them into the outgroup, right? So a lot of things happen when you put somebody into this outgroup. So it's quite a proven tendency that you are more likely to stereotype them. So you will assume that they have certain traits which fit your preconceptions of what a person like that who disagrees with you is supposed to behave like. And in that effort to do so, I think a lot of people often overlook the complexity of the individual that they're targeting. So that can be very problematic. And it's often why sometimes even apologies are not enough, I think. I feel like a lot of YouTubers nowadays, when they make a mistake, they think that, I'm so sorry. I just want tell you, I've been suffering so much. I really think that can be seen as too little, too late.
I think like what Gwyneth said about like nowadays an apology isn't enough. I think a lot of people are kind of looking for actual change, like action to change their conduct on social media, and also see them start advocating for the communities that they might have marginalized in the process.
So at the end of the day, if you say a racist remark or a homophobic remark, it reflects your personality or how ignorant you can be to certain things. Like, for example, Joanna thing and her video, how the six color flag is just satanic. I feel like that's just a form of it's like ignorant. It's just like ignorant for her to not have researched properly about the history of the rainbow flag. And while she has apologized about it and said, "Oh, I still love the people. I can love people but not support their lifestyle."
I hope
It's
you can speak to
That's
me
not
with
loving
logic and
someone.
rationality.
Right? It's like I feel while people think like, oh, they changed, they're more empathetic. I just feel like cancel culture will kind of like make people become more fake.
Cancel culture is a result of an intolerance to differences in opinions.
I think for me, I disagree that cancel culture means that people can't have different opinions, because I feel like, yes, you can have your freedom of speech, but that doesn't mean that there's freedom of consequences. Yes, you're like entitled to your own opinions, but people are also entitled to have opinions about your opinions as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes opinion can cross the line, especially when they have real life effect on marginalized people.
I feel like cancel culture is more of like there are two camps. This is the right camp. This is like the unpopular camp. So if you belong to the unpopular camp, you're just cancelled.
I feel like cancel culture, puts the fear in people to even say an opinion in the first place, because they're scared of what they share is going to be, criticized, or to the point where even their livelihood will be ruined because of their opinions.
A lot of people say like, oh, cancel culture means that I can't share my opinions, or like my opinions are not tolerated. My problem with this argument is that a lot of people, they use this argument to try to silence criticism instead of really in the exchange of ideas, which is like the whole point of freedom of speech in the first place.
I think that there's actually one more very important party that is not really talked about. Okay, so in an episode, there's a target, there's a canceller, it may be a group, or it may be an individual, but there's also an audience. The audience is there, and it's important to remember that they have agency. So it is very important that whatever you say, you need to be ready to take responsibility for it, like what Filman mentioned. So if you say something that you get a backlash for, don't act surprised, like, oh my god, you guys are cancelling me, this is violating my free speech, nobody cares. Okay, like you say, if you make your bed, you lie in it.
That's right.
Period.
What is considered unacceptable social behavior is undefined.
This is a question that has a lot of nuances. Like it's a gray area that like you can't really put a label on. But like most of the time, like unacceptable social behavior is like more like a unspoken rule. Like, for example, we shouldn't say the N-word, because it has a history of slavery and oppression. For me, it's about constantly educating myself and listening to what the marginalized are saying.
My stance is we all come from like different backgrounds and have different experiences and different privileges. There is no hard rule to what is acceptable or not. I think it's more of like what the majority or what millennials nowadays believe is right and what they firmly stand by. Since everyone is so woke nowadays. I think the lines are really blur. Like today, I could believe that it's right to support this belief, but tomorrow when trends change, suddenly I'm wrong for supporting this.
I do agree with what Cheryl said in a sense that society is based upon not just a few people, not just millennials. There's like Gen Zs, millennials, there's elderly. I don't want to say boomers. It's like there's so many age groups, there's so many trains of thought that influence it, which is why I think social behavior is always very difficult to navigate for people. All about educating yourself, and when you don't do that, you just end up ignorant, and that's when you come off as like out of the norm from the social behavior?
I believe that norms are always changing.
Yes.
So if you're talking about a very large period of time, it is always undefined because you never know when it might change tomorrow. So for example, last time, Singapore used to be relatively more conservative than it is today. But however, with the rise of the size and the influence of the younger generation, there's actually a bit of a shift. So I think norms are always in flux. So they can change across time. So I think the law is actually a way that you define norms.
So what do you think about cancel culture? Has it always been around or is it a new phenomenon? We'd love to hear what you think about this down in the comment section below.
If you enjoyed this episode of Norton and you would like to join our future episode, click the link below. Be sure to subscribe to SG Layers if you have not, and we'll see you next Monday.